How I got back at a pushy guy on a bad first date when I was 18, about a decade ago now. I dipped my toes into the wild world of online dating. I lived in the US just 15 minutes from the Canadian border, which opened up some interesting options. At 18, I couldn't legally drink in the States, but just across that invisible line, the rules changed. One day I matched with this guy who seemed charming enough, and after chatting for a while, we decided to meet up in Canada. First date at a casino bar. Why not? He picked me up in this sleek little sports car, clearly proud of it. It was spotless, shiny, low to the ground, and had that constant smell of overpriced air freshener. The type of car someone talks about before you even ask. But I didn't think much of it. We were just headed for a casual night out. We crossed the border with no issues and things started out all right. We had a few drinks, played a couple games at the casino, and the vibe wasn't horrible. It was fun for a little while. I had a decent buzz going, but I knew my limits, and I hit them. I could feel that one more drink would push me into sick territory, and I wasn't about to cross that line, especially not in a foreign country with a guy I barely knew. So I told him I was done drinking. Clear, polite, firm, and he did not take it well. He ignored me and went off to buy us both another round. When he came back, he handed me a Long Island iced tea, the kind of drink that tastes like nothing and hits like a truck. I said no again, told him I was done, but he pushed. Told me I had to drink it because he bought it. Said if I didn't, I'd be wasting his money. He kept repeating that over and over. I told him no, multiple times, and he kept pressuring me, guilt-tripping me, acting like I was the unreasonable one for knowing my own limits. The longer it went on, the angrier I got. I felt trapped. I was alone in a different country with this man who clearly didn't care about consent or comfort. I was furious at myself for even trusting him enough to go. Eventually, I went silent, didn't argue, just sat there and stewed. And while he rambled on, bragging about his car again, I started forming a little plan. He said he'd drive me home after I finished the drink. Fine. I picked up the glass, locked eyes with him, and chugged it. We got into his car and started heading for the border. He was back to talking about his car like it was his child. All the custom work, the stereo system, the leather interior, the detailing job he got done just last week. Meanwhile, I was staring straight ahead, focusing entirely on keeping my stomach from exploding. That Long Island was already churning in my gut like a storm. I made it through the border checkpoint, barely. As soon as we were back on US soil, I turned to him, calm, dead serious. I told him I didn't appreciate how he forced that drink on me, how I knew my limits, how I told him no multiple times, and he ignored every one of them, that his behavior was disrespectful, pushy, and wrong. And then I vomited, deliberately, with full eye contact. I angled my body just enough to maximize the damage. On the seat, on the floor, the dash, the center console, that perfect leather interior, not so perfect anymore. The sour mix of liquor, casino snacks, and rage came pouring out, and he completely freaked. He started yelling, asking what was wrong with me, pulling over like the car was on fire. I was already crying, not because I was sad, but because I was so done. I told him this was his fault, that he could either take me home immediately or I was calling the police. There was no third option. He took me home, silent the entire drive. When we pulled up to my place, I opened the door, got out without a word, and slammed it shut behind me. I didn't look back, didn't say goodbye, didn't see him again, ever. No messages, no follow-up, just vanished like the cheap cologne he wore. Sometimes when I think about that night, I remember the fear I felt, how trapped I was, how powerless it seemed in the moment. But then I remember the way his jaw dropped when the vomit hit the dash. That beautiful, awful moment where I reclaimed control in the most gloriously disgusting way possible. He wanted to force something on me? Well, I gave him something in return.